With just 3 days left until the opening practice session of the Imola Grand Prix, Ferrari still have question marks regarding their upgrade package for the event, and that's even after using it in their private track in Fiorano last Friday. And this is for a couple of reasons, in which this new Formula Uno article goes into, which is a real interesting read. So, as you all know, both Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz had their first taste of the newly upgraded 2.0 version of the SF-24 last Friday in Fiorano. And the test as a whole went without a hitch. They managed to correlate the wind tunnel and CFD data with the real world, so that's a very positive sign to have. However, the team knows that Imola only gives them a certain amount of understanding of this new package, as it doesn't necessarily hold all the speed ranges of corners that we can expect to see on the rest of the calendar. And of course, a lot of this depends on what both Leclerc and Sainz can actually extract from the new package in terms of the new settings that it requires for any given circuit. And so there's still a little bit of a query as to how they're going to go once they hit the track in Imola. Now this of course comes after the first filming day of the SF-24 back in February, and there was a subtle difference to both drivers' reactions at the first filming day session with the original launch spec. They came out of the cars kind of from the information gathered by Formula Uno and other website articles that they were very happy and smiley, and they could feel a clear, step in improvement over last year's SF-23. And that necessarily wasn't the case this time around. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a case of it's an underperforming car. No, the issue that they had was with the test tyres, the kind of filming day tyres. These aren't the tyres that the Formula 1 cars will actually be using at a Grand Prix event. These are just filmed, or these are rather just used specifically to film the cars going around for that promotional footage, as what this whole filming day was intended to be. But of course, teams are a bit cleverer and they just bring new upgrades to the cars and test them out using these tyres. And this is where the issue comes in for Ferrari. Whereas in the first test, albeit at different kind of conditions, but at the same time of the day, I will have you know, they were able to not overheat the tyres during this test of the launch spec car. But with this new SF-24 EVO version, the tyres overheated after a couple of push laps. Now, this is something that they need to kind of figure out and sort out to see whether it was just a case of it being an issue with that particular set of tyres, that particular time of day, and just the weather in general. And of course, these whole upgrades have not been designed to interact with this particular set of filming day tyres. They've been designed around how the car, initially interacts with the actual Grand Prix events. And so they're going to have to actually wait until they get to Imola and have the first practice sessions to start getting a baseline of how the car performs. And it will become very evident, I would say quite early on, whether the car is overheating the tyres, with the result of having to kind of change the settings and the setup of the car around this new aero platform that they've now introduced. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how it all unfolds throughout the first couple of sessions. I think we'll be able to see a little bit of a pattern, particularly once we get the long run data from FP2. Now, regarding the plans at the beginning of the season, Ferrari actually, interestingly, had a different approach in mind to how they wanted to bring upgrades to the car. But this all changed regarding one particular set of tests that they did. And all of this news, of course, comes from Formula Uno. And it's all about what they managed to actually achieve with the Red Bull style overbite on the sidepod. And this changed their plans, because initially Ferrari would have carried out their second filming day in June in Barcelona. So of course they fast forwarded everything by a month. And they were also going to have a kind of intermediate package that would have been debuted in Japan, very much in the same way that Aston Martin did. But they decided to stick with the package that they had for the first 6 races or 5 races and concentrate on bringing one huge package where they would introduce a huge amount of different parts, new parts, to the SF-24. And this would obviously, as we've been able to uncover and gather from this article, they've managed to achieve in terms of getting the overall downforce and load points that they were looking to get from it, which by the way was around 16 points. So everything has been met and the expectations are there. It's now just a matter of how competitive they're going to be once they turn up in Imola, and of course make sure they get the setup right so they don't overheat the tyres, which is what they had an issue with during the filming day. And of course they also want to be a little bit wary of raising expectations, because they too are very aware of how kind of fickle or on a knife edge these upgrades can be for any of the teams. The data in the wind tunnel and CFD can say one thing, and then when it comes to the on-track action, it doesn't actually equate to what they saw in the data. And we have both the likes of Mercedes and Aston Martin as a prime example of what can go wrong when correlating from the digital world into the real world. So they want to have a bit of a kind of dampened expectations and kind of play it down, so if they overachieve to the public, it looks really good. And I think this was something very similar in which McLaren approached their huge Miami upgrade. They very much dampened expectations and were playing down what they were hoping to achieve from this upgrade, while of course internally they knew how big of a package they had, and then of course we know what happened there. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you found this information very informative and interesting for you all. If you've enjoyed the video, of course hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you all in a few other Formula 1 videos later this week.